Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.
Of course, we're wrapping up this week with a very familiar voice. Not a familiar face, but a familiar voice. Someone whose work has kind of shaped a generation of anime fans around the world. Veronica Taylor is an American voice actress with a career spanning almost 3 decades. Best known for her iconic role as Ash Ketchum in the first 8 seasons of Pokemon. She has lent her voice to performances. Joining us from London, we're very excited to look into her incredible journey in the world of voice acting. Good evening, Veronica. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good to talk
Thanks
to you.
so much for having me.
Now, by the way,
nice to hear your voice.
well, now that's ironic that you say that to me, but there you go. Nice to hear yours. I mean, isn't it always weird that when you talk to somebody who's a voice actor, you kind of go, you just know they're a voice actor. I've heard that voice before. And I've talked to many voice actors throughout the years. And I just find it kind of odd and weird because you associate the voice with the characters they've played.
That's true. Often you do. I'm lucky because I've played so many different characters and I narrate so many audiobooks. So I get to be many, many people all the time. So I'm lucky when someone says, I didn't know you did that, because I'd rather kind of fade into the characters rather than stand out as myself.
And do you have fun with the voices? Because so many of us, of course, watch Pokemon throughout the years, and so many kids still do, by the way.
Yeah.
Pokemon has spanned so many generations now at this stage. I mean, do you ever use it when you're out in public, when you see a kid that you know might be a Pokemon fan? Or
I wouldn't really do that ever because, I think, quite honestly, you don't want to say like, hey, I'm Ash Ketchum. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're so weird. But, I also think, especially for Pokemon, it's so personal and people have such deep connections to it that you don't want to just kind of run up and go, hey, do you know who I am? Hey, look at me. It's not really about that. It's about your own personal journey. So I don't really do Ash's voice for Ash's sake. But I certainly do things sometimes where, like, weird voices, weird accents, that kind of thing.
And it's almost like a method acting as well. I mean, I know you didn't only do Ash, you did the mother, Delia, as well. So that must have been difficult for you to do both, particularly if they were communicating with each other or talking to each other. So how do you do that? Do you do that in 2 takes? Or do you do that by just switching your voice from one to the other as you go along?
Yeah, it's both, actually. But when you're dubbing something, as we did with Pokemon, where the original voice is in another language and we're essentially fitting the lip flap, then you do all of your lines as one character and then they go back and do all of the lines as any other one. So that you, in the second pass, you have a conversation with yourself. But in an audiobook, you flip back and forth like I'm sitting in your room reading to you. So in that sense, Delia could be like, Ash, don't forget to change your underwear. Oh, Mom, come on. You're embarrassing me.
It's
so
brilliant.
You would flip back and forth audiobook-wise, but not really not in dubbing, but in prelay, like when I worked on Ninja Turtles, definitely you'd play all the characters in the scene as they came.
Okay, so who for those of us who all watched the Turtles as we grew up as children, so you were April.
Yeah. Right, April in the 2003 to 2007 Turtles.
Okay. And was April's voice hard to do? So here's another question. Please don't take this as an insult.
Yes.
As you get older,
of course not.
Is it harder for you to do younger voices? Because I know if I listen to recordings of me on the radio from 30 years ago, I sound like a child. So I sound like my own child. So is it
tiny boy?
Yeah. So is it harder for you to do the younger voices as you get older?
I wouldn't say it hasn't been harder for me, actually. Luckily, I can kind of work out my voice every day. So I can keep that really high range and then still have my low range for whenever I need that. So I can move back if I had my radio voice. And then come on, guys, let's get going. And then have that kind of silly child voice.
Yeah, I was watching a great interview there a while ago, and it's an old interview now with Mel Blanc. I'm sure you know who Mel Blanc is. And it was with David Letterman.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and this interview was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And he went through the whole range because, of course, he did all the Looney Tunes stuff. So he did Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig. He did all of them. And he went through the whole range. And I'm going, how does he remember each one of those voices?
Yeah.
Pepe Le Pew, what was it? Yosemite Sam. He did them all. So when you're doing so many voices throughout your career, and you've come back to some of them every now and again when you're asked to do some work or whatever, is it hard then to remember what was that voice again, and what was the tone I did that voice in? Is it hard to remember?
Well, certainly it's hard for me to remember the idiosyncrasies of each character on my own. Luckily, when I go back to a character, often there's a voice reference. And when I hear that, then I remember all of the attributes that I gave the character, how they stand, how they breathe, how they speak. And then it kind of comes back to me in a flash, and then I can sink back into the character. But I always ask for the reference because I don't want to assume that I played the character a certain way. And sometimes as a character progresses, they also mature in different ways. Ash Ketchum definitely did. He grew in wisdom, even though his voice stayed the same. So if I were going to pop back into an episode, I would get a reference from something in that episode or something in that time period so that I could be in the right zone.
And the voice acting world, is that going to be affected now by AI, do you think?
Definitely. I mean, that's why we have been having strikes. Video games are on strike. At the moment, you can do so much with AI. It's already happening. The fact that someone, there's these voice banks that people can get a voice and then make it say whatever they want.
Yeah.
That's already happening. I just got an email the other day from an audiobook producer, and they were saying that they were starting to do a voice banks for audiobooks where you really need to tell the story, and that means changing the pace and each character
you know
is so
what?
different.
But they're getting good at that as well. I remember when AI voices were very monotone, and look, because I worked in media, I'm very familiar with the AI voices. But we were using one recently for something that we needed an American accent for, and we used this particular site where you get and it's like there was context to it. And at one stage, we were, myself, my business partner, we were convinced that it actually took a breath. It went. And I'm going, how does an AI voice take a breath? You know what I mean?
I know. We're all going to be out of work if we don't stand up. And I mean, I think people have to speak with their wallets, and not pay for things that are using AI so that you're getting the quality. I also think, you use your voice every day. When we speak, and all humans really, when you put your heart into it, it affects people in a very different way than when you are just talking or when the AI voice is just saying something. There's a feeling. It's like Water for Chocolate. When she cooked all of the food and her emotions got into the food, I think that there's power in your voice, and what you put into what you say matters.
But I try and tell people this all the time, even about what I do.
Yeah.
And I say, it's like I don't walk around the street all day giving my opinions to people and in a very animated way. I do it on radio, but I say essentially it is my real opinions, but I'm acting. I'm emphasizing my opinions, and if people saw me here in the studio, they'll see I'm moving my hands, even though you can't see me at the moment. I move my hands and I'm articulating and emphasizing everything. And that's all part of the job. And that's something I don't believe AI, I hope, will never replicate.
I hope.
Is the passion behind the voice.
And I'm doing the same. The passion, that's the whole thing. And that's what moves people. That's what makes them tune in every night to listen to you. And that's what motivates people to do something when they hear a speech that is so impassioned. And it makes a difference. All of that makes a difference. It's the same in art, music, voice. You need the human behind it.
And was it difficult for you, by the way? I know you probably had lots of memorable moments, behind the scenes stories when you were doing Pokemon. But was it difficult for you to say goodbye to the character?
Oh my gosh, definitely for Ash. We were all replaced after the 8th season, so we didn't have the option to go on with the show. I think all of us would have done it till the bitter end for sure. But we were just told we weren't needed anymore. So that was the end. So yeah, definitely it was very difficult, with no real reason. When Pokemon USA took the show, they let us go. So
Yeah, not good for your wallet
definitely
either.
difficult.
Yeah, and not good for your bank account.
Luckily for me, I mean, Pokemon's never been my only job. As an actor, I've never had one job. Nothing that I've ever done has paid enough to just like do that one job and sit back.
I know that feeling.
So, I mean, the same. No, I know exactly. We're all freelancers, and you want to be creative, and so it's good to just keep working. And the kinds of jobs I've done are so crazy. And I even do Mango languages. I'm the American teacher who teaches English speakers how to speak other languages.
Wow.
So there's crazy jobs like that, or phone answering systems, or all these kinds of things. So
have you got any of the really big gigs? I know a good friend of ours got the gig recently for Siri Ireland, which is the voice of Siri in Ireland, which is Siri with an Irish accent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they're worth a few quid.
Right.
You get a 5-year contract or whatever it is. So have you got any of those ones?
That's good.
Yeah.
No, I've worked on some systems that were training, like for IBM.
Okay.
I've worked on things like that, but nothing. And even so, back when Siri began, that job didn't pay very much at all. So I'm happy that your friend is getting something out of it.
I mean, at least you get to other characters. Nancy Cartwright, for example, who's been responsible for Bart Simpson for many years, who's made quite a substantial amount of money out of it, I'm sure, out of The Simpsons.
Right.
But that's difficult, isn't it? Because she's doing a character that doesn't age. Is that a difficult thing to do a character that doesn't get older?
Well, it's the same thing as being on stage every night for a long run in a play. You always find new and more interesting things about the character, and then you add that into what you're playing. And every moment is new. So no, I don't think it gets old at all. Mm-hmm. Definitely playing Ash is the longest. Having 8 years as a character has been great. You know, some audiobooks I've had the series for 12 years.
Yeah.
So those characters have aged also in different ways and matured. So it's just a challenge of it that I really like. And definitely I would say, again, no. Playing the same character for many, many years, it's a bonus. You know how they think. You can guess what they're going to say almost before they say it.
Are you a one-take voiceover artist? Are you every producer's dream?
That's kind of, I just don't know how to really answer that, but yes.
I mean, because doing an audiobook, I mean, obviously I do promos for the station, or I do promos for my podcast.
Right.
And, okay, most of the time I'm one take. But sometimes when you get it wrong once.
You're spot on.
Yeah, but the problem for me is if I get it wrong once, I'll keep getting it wrong, right? So here's the thing. I can't imagine, I've never done an audiobook, but I can't imagine having to do a whole book. A4 page, I'm done. Audiobook must be difficult because it takes a lot of your time, doesn't it?
It does, because you have to read the book and prep it and look up all the words, no matter, even if you think you know how to pronounce it, you look it up to make sure. And then you have to kind of chart out the characters so that you can see their growth in the book. And you also, if it's a mystery, you have to know who did it so that you don't give it away in the beginning. And then you also have to kind of orchestrate the voices so that the ones who speak the most have maybe the middle range of your voice, and then the ones with fewer lines can be more extreme, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because you're not going to stretch your voice. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And also, if you have 5 main women, you have to figure out what makes, for instance, you have to figure out what makes each of them unique.
Yeah.
So it's like weaving or putting a quilt of voices together. You have to make sure it all matches up and that the patterns work.
I mean, voice acting is so
fantastic.
There's so much more to voice acting than there is to kind of movie acting, I suppose, in a sense that with movie acting, your movements are kind of 80% of your acting, where your voice is probably only 20% of it. Whereas with voice acting, your voice is 100% of the acting. I mean, so you got to...
Yeah, because your face can do an eyebrow lift, and that gives a lot of information, but your voice has to do that eyebrow lift, So, you weave a lot into it, for sure. And
that's what I try to tell young people coming into the business of radio. I said the most important thing when you're doing your links, if you're doing music links in radio, which I don't do, I just do talk radio. But I said, smile. people can hear a smile. They can actually hear a
Right.
smile. And people don't believe that.
Yeah.
But if you listen to a guy doing a link on the radio and he's going, there you go, that was a great song by Bon Jovi. It just
Right.
Whereas if a guy comes out and goes, there you go, great song by Bon Jovi, there's a big smile on his
Yeah.
face, you can hear the smile.
You totally can. I was just doing a project yesterday that it's originally in French and we're doing it in English. And that's what the producer in France was saying. It needs more smile, more joy. So, like it doesn't matter what language you're speaking. We all know if that smile isn't there, something is lacking. For sure.
When you're doing voiceover work, are you ever working with a group of people, in the same rooms? Because I watched a clip there recently of the Minions and the people who do the voices,
Oh, yeah.
which is a quite strange language,
Oh,
the
my
Minion
gosh.
language. I can only imagine what that's like trying to do that. But there's like three of them, behind three mics in the same room, talking to each other in Minion language.
Right.
I suppose it's to get the reaction of each other's expressions. But have you ever been? Do you do work where you're in rooms with other people working? Yeah.
Yeah, I have in the past, but now, since lockdown, really, I mostly record at home alone. And then when I do go into the studio, it's still alone. And then there's an engineer and a director on the other side of the glass, as usual. But I've not been part of any group records since 2020.
Wow.
So it's a lonely job. It's like your job. You're in there in the booth by yourself.
I am. I'm all
chatting
lonely.
away.
Yeah.
But you're so lonely. But you know what it is? It's you imagine your audience and you're speaking to one, or you're speaking to those specific people out there. It's the same in everything that I do. You keep the audience in mind, because if you're not telling the story, then no one's going to get it. Same as when you're on stage. If you're not in the moment and believing and being your role or the scene, then the audience won't buy it. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same. You lose your audience if you're not connected.
So what's the future for you? Have you got a plan now for the future? Is there any voices that you would have loved to have done that you watch, other animated shows or whatever, and you go, God, I'd love to do that voice. That'd be me down. I'd love that one.
I think the truthful answer is I just want to keep working. And the fact is, I don't know all the voices that I have inside me yet, and I'm still kind of unearthing them one audition at a time. But I do love voices that are far from my normal voice. And because certainly like April O'Neil is very close to this voice, and which is fine. And it's fine to kind of be me in a way, but I'd much rather be any other person. To play a sheep or a baby or a 100-year-old woman.
How do you play a
all of those
baby?
things.
How do you play a baby?
Well, I was not sure if I could talk that well, but I will really, really try.
Maybe. You just like the fact that you can express so much, and we're free from our bodies as voice actors, so you can just imagine it and be it.
Yeah.
So that's my future wish, is that I just keep working and creating characters and trying to do something with them.
See, every child will just love you reading stories to them. You know what I mean? So I'd say you're the best story reader for children ever. But I don't know whether you have any children of your own, by the way, Veronica. But
I do. Yeah, my daughter. Yeah, she's 25, and I certainly read a lot of books to her when she was growing up. She is an artist, and she works with me on different projects. We have a podcast that we do together.
What is your podcast? Tell us your podcast. Tell us about it. Where is it?
Yeah, it's called The Trainer's Guide, and it's a rewatch right now of the first season of Pokemon. So basically, we talk about what happens in each episode and then expand into the real world and talk about lessons learned and how it applies to things that are happening now. And then we ask, I think the best part of it is that we ask people to either send in a recording or write something of how Pokemon affected their lives. And the stories are so beautiful. And it really is the greatest part of the whole show. And we travel to so many conventions, Comic Cons around the world, and hear these stories. So now we offer a chance for everyone to hear these stories. That's been really amazing.
Why do you think Pokemon originally became so like this kind of global phenomenon? I mean, it was based off an anime, which is not even based off Western culture. So how do you think it became so popular?
Well, I do think that the stories are so genuinely human. I mean, you have a 10-year-old boy who gets to go off on his own. He's just yearning and trying to be the greatest, to be his very best. And he makes so many mistakes, and yet along the way, he helps his friends to become their best. He learns about himself. He befriends his Pokemon, and they compromise and work together. It's just so common to our human experience. And I think, especially when you're 10, to be able to be Ash Ketchum in your mind and then watch the show and go out in the backyard and play what you just saw and join up with your friends. It's just, I don't know, there's such a community aspect to it and such a wonderful bonding that's occurred between people because of their friendships and they start off saying, oh yeah, I like Pokemon too. And then they learn they have so much more in common. And I'm talking to so many kids who are now in their 30s who started watching when they were 10. And it's just amazing. I think in that sense, this Pokemon generation is incredibly thoughtful and courageous and generous human beings. And I have the fortune, the good fortune to meet up with them around the world. Some people I've seen when they were 10, and now I see them when they come back with their own kids. Mm-hmm. It's just so incredible.
And still listening to your voice as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which your voice has travelled through a generation. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Ireland. They do have some conventions here in Ireland. I don't know.
I have indeed. I have relatives in Ireland also. So I come every year or two for sure.
Okay, so where are your relatives from? What part? In Galway. Okay, beautiful part of the country.
Ennis and Limerick.
Oh, okay.
So I'm over in County Clare and Limerick.
Okay, well, look, the next time you're over, don't forget, you can check us out, drop into the radio station here, and we'd be happy to chat to you again. But listen, it's been lovely.
Oh, I am.
It's been lovely talking to you.
I will for sure.
And how would Ash...
thank you so much.
How would Ash Ketchum say goodbye, by the way?
It's been really great talking to you. I've had the best time. And you know what? You bring out the best in me. So thank you. And ultimately, I choose you.
Ash Ketchum, better known as Veronica Taylor, or other way around. Actually, you're probably better off known as Ash Ketchum. Listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We really appreciate it. People can go to the podcast, by the way, called The Trainer's Guide. If you're a Pokemon fan, you'll love it. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and I'm sure we'll chat again sometime.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. You're the best.
See ya. Bye.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.